to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
This is the aforementioned show, the BJ Show. Today is Thursday, March 13th. This is the A block, which means we start right after 7 o'clock. The reason I do that is because of the fact a lot of people listen to this into the future on bjshow.co, which is our website, our podcast website, and bjshow.video, which is the video version of this, the YouTube podcast version of it. John Combest, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Brad.
That's the voice of the guy who every single morning burns up the keyboard, putting together the most extensive list of all the important stuff you need to know that's going on in the state of Missouri. He runs his website, has for 23 plus years, johncombest.com, C-O-M-B-E-S-T. You know how to spell John, you know how to spell .com. Put that into your computer, you'll find all the information there. Not the most fanciest computer or website in the world. Matter of fact, we'd call it maybe one web 1.0 minus 1.0. It looks like something back in the early 2000s, right, John? I mean, I'm not making fun of you, but it's done for speed, correct?
I think we would say it, well, it's like a lot of your high school girlfriends, Brad. They were built for speed. We could call it Web 0.0.
Appropriately put. We bring this guy in every morning. What's your name again, sir?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And his job is to?
We're on our way to the number one.
And he starts with?
In third place.
In Jefferson City, it's one of your favorite times of year, Brad, because state representatives and state senators are going on spring break, a much-deserved spring break. But when they come back, it's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows and unicorns for Democrats. No, there's been a lot of personal conflict going on among Missouri House Democrats, so much so that KSDK reporter Mark Maxwell tweeted yesterday, quote, rumblings are growing louder that Missouri House Democrats are displeased with Minority Leader Ashley Aune. An informal whip count has been underway in recent days to test the idea of ousting the Kansas City Democrat from her new post. You'll recall that Ashley Aune took over from the Democrats' former super minority leader, Crystal Quaid. Ashley Aune is from the Kansas City area. We've mentioned before, she says that she is the only Latina member of the Missouri House of Representatives. I think she could pass as Caucasoid. You know what I mean? She says she's Latina, though. The point of all this is that now this is getting a little bit more attention, this being the call of Democrats to oust Ashley Aune. And in fact, today, it was mentioned by both the Whispering Gallery, which is put out by the Missouri Times, and Missouri Scout, which is put out by Dave Drebus. Both of their newsletters talk about the fact that 17 Democrats signed a letter, and they took it to the caucus chair, a woman named Emily Weber from Kansas City, and said, hey, we need to sit down and talk. When we get back from spring break, we're all going to get together and have a family meeting. Now, 3 of those members, according to Dave Drebus, who signed the letter, said they didn't know that this meeting was actually about ousting Ashley Aune, so they rescinded their signature. But the point is, Dems are going to get together. They got all break to think about it. Do they want to keep Ashley Aune as their leader? The letter, Brad, doesn't say what their qualms with Ashley Aune are. Are they personal issues? Do they feel like she's spending time on the wrong stuff? Or is it something administrative? Is there something going on with the administration of the House Dem caucus that some members don't like? It reminds me of the fact that my friend Brad tells me quite a bit that Democrats get together and get along really well and Republicans don't. This would seem to dispute that claim, Brad.
John, does your ears to the ground? Do you have any idea why they're upset with her?
Well, here's the thing, and I won't give away newsletter stuff for free because people pay for these newsletters. Dave Drebus and his Mo Scout newsletter suggests that the issue that they're having is that Ashley Aune wants to combine some functions of the Missouri House Democrats with the Missouri Senate Democrats. Now, I think if you want more information on that, I think Dave Drebus would say, pay for my newsletter, and I'll give you more insight coming up. And I would imagine the Whispering Gallery from the Missouri Times will have more details too. It's hard to say. And I think part of it is the fact that reps are going on break. We'll have a little bit of time to cool off. I can't imagine it has to do with holding Ashley accountable for different votes that House Democrats have taken. So, for example, there were some House Democrats that voted for state control of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. Maybe some of it has to do with the fact that Ashley Aune was involved in the House Dems campaign to take seats away from Republicans. And you'll recall, Brad, that Missouri House Democrats gained 0 seats in November. Ashley Aune predicted that they would gain between 3 and 7. So I don't know. A lot of times in stuff like this, it has to do with personalities. And as we famously cover, I'm not a Jeff City guy. I don't go to Jeff City. So I don't know the personality clashes between these folks. I'm guessing it's probably a personality issue.
John, I have a subscription as well, too, and I don't want to give this away because of the fact that the Waldo Zimwarski guy that writes this, the Jeff City Beagle is the one I subscribe to. He says that the reason they're getting together is they're going to throw a surprise party for Ashley, and they're going to have a big celebratory event where they're going to say, "Oh my God, girl, you're doing such a good job." That's what Waldo says in the Jefferson City Beagle. But we'll just have to see.
Oh, nice! He's quite reliable, and in fact, he's making a last-ditch effort because thanks to Missouri state legislature, you can actually raise puppies and then sell them and then kill them. It's a whole thing. So I would trust the Beagle for sure.
On to number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
Oh, Brad, it turns out I'm going to have to give what will become, as long as you and I are on the radio, an annual pep talk / instruction talk to people that work in corporate America. We'll get to the story first. And as a spoiler, the lesson has to do with something that my friend Brad Hildebrand is 100% right about, and sometimes John is wrong about. The story comes from the Missouri Independent today, and a really good content creator over there called Rudy Keller. Rudy's been part of the press corps for a while as a traditional journalist and now as a blogger at the Missouri Independent. The headline: some records of Bear's Missouri campaign to protect Roundup will be unsealed. Now, this focuses on a case of a gentleman from Wisconsin who developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he's suing Bayer because this gentleman was exposed, he says, to Roundup, and he claims that the popular herbicide caused his non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. This case is brought forward by a gentleman named Matt Clement. He's the attorney. And if we pause here for a second, I'd point out that folks can go to my website last Thursday and hear a really thorough interview that Elijah Haar at KWTO did with this attorney, Matt Clement, about this case. Anyway, the short of it, Brad, is that Matt Clement wants a bunch of internal Bayer emails released to the public. And he says, hey, let's unseal all these emails that are specifically focused on Bayer's, what he calls a propaganda campaign. And more specifically, the lobbying campaign that you see and hear in some state senators' districts. And, Brad, you referenced the fact that Mark Cox on the Mark Cox Morning Show on 97.1 has talked about this quite a bit. The point is, Clement says, hey, let's release all this stuff to the public. Let's unseal this set of documents. I think there's 46 documents that he wants unsealed for the public to see. Now, for their part, 2 Bayer attorneys, a gentleman named Anthony Martinez, and then a prominent Democrat in Jeff City named Chuck Hatfield. He's an attorney for Bayer now, I guess a contract attorney for Bayer now. And he says, whoa. The only point in releasing these publicly is that this guy, the plaintiff's attorney, he wants to make them public to try to embarrass Bayer. He wants to take them to the state senators and use it as a lobbying tool. And for his part in this story, Matt Clement says, yeah, pretty much. I'm definitely going to take these to legislators and show them how terrible Bayer is. So a big fight. And the crux of this, what I didn't know, you're probably familiar with this, Brad, you have more experience with the legal system than I do. This gentleman, there's a gentleman who is called the special master. And in some of these cases, the special master makes recommendations to a judge. I didn't know that. So the special master is considering this request to take a bunch of Bayer stuff and make it public. And he's going to make a recommendation officially to the judge. Now, Brad, do you have a comment on this, or can I get into the thing that Brad Hildebrand's right about?
Okay, well, first off, the special master thing is sort of an interesting aspect of the law, which I don't totally understand how it ever became a thing. But essentially, it's like a third-party insulating between the essentially. It's essentially like a fourth party entered into the equation, so to speak. The fourth party meaning you have the judge, which is the first party, you have the plaintiff, second party, defendant, third party, and the special master is like a fourth party. Now, there's attorneys out there probably saying, "What is he talking about?" That's essentially what it is, and you have to go through the special master for certain documents. And that's what this is coming down to. Isn't that what they're saying, that they have to go to the special master to release these documents?
Yeah, and what the special master says, he says, okay, we're going to look at this first batch of 46 specific documents, and then I'll consider if other documents should also be released. So what I get from this is that this gentleman, the plaintiff's attorney, Matt Clement, he wants a whole lot of other stuff released, but he's starting with this tidbit, this batch of 46 documents.
Okay, now, what did I get right?
Go ahead, Brett.
What did I get right?
I'm going to tell you what you're right about. And it's something that I dispute with you quite a bit. But I talked about this roughly a year ago, so I'll repeat the story once a year. Brad, you and I get into a back and forth a lot because I'm not a talk on the phone guy. Like, here's the thing. If you have an X and a Y chromosome, I probably don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking to you on the phone. You get what I'm saying? Brad Hildebrand is the guy that says, hey, pick up the phone, call a guy, call me, call anybody. What this comes down to is, and this is what you and I talked about on the air a year ago, if you work for a big company, if you work for Bayer, you work for Centene, you work for Energizer, you work for anybody, and you're having a controversial conversation, pick up the phone and call the person at your company that you need information from. Because today, emails are all discoverable. Text messages are discoverable. If you look back at old Monsanto lawsuits, voicemail messages that are transcribed into text on a cell phone are discoverable. So to follow the advice of Brad Hildebrand, when Brad says, hey, just pick up the phone and call somebody, today in March 2025, there's no such thing as a discoverable phone call. So if Brad and I have a conversation on the phone about a toxicology report and how we're going to try to influence state legislators or regulators, an attorney will never find that conversation. But Brad, if I texted you about it, or I emailed you about it, or I left you a voicemail, then plaintiffs' attorneys could find it. So just consider, if you work for a corporation or a nonprofit that's working on a controversial topic, just think before you send an email or send a text message. You see what I'm saying, Brad?
John, I couldn't agree with you more. That's and not only that, there's so many, there's this thing that I learned in college. I don't know if they even call it anymore. It's called paralanguage. And paralanguage is, and the professor, I still remember this, a professor stood up in front of his class and he says, if I go to my wife and I say, I love you, what does she think? But if I go to my wife and I say, I love you.
Yeah, that you're very sad. Yeah.
I love you. The idea being is what the words are the same, but it's how it's said. And that to me is the nuance you get on a telephone call. It's the same nuance you get when you're sitting in front of somebody or beside somebody or across the dinner table from somebody or in bed with somebody, your wife, that kind of a thing. It's the nuances of how you say things, and I think that's so important, which is missed in texts and emails. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. I mean, imagine
that is true, and go ahead, Brad.
I said, imagine if the radio here, if instead of us actually talking, if it was text to speech, where you and I would just sit with our phones and text back and forth, and we'd have a machine which would essentially be reading our text. John just said, this is what should happen. Brad just said, blah, blah. You know what I mean?
You wouldn't get that I was just being a jerk the whole time. You would think that I was being serious.
See, that's the interesting part of this is that I don't, and by the way, pick this up and be, once again, somebody said something to me yesterday which really, identified with this whole crazy thing is, How do you know what are the generations? Because when somebody says, I'm a millennial, okay, what does that mean? I say go back to my I gave this thing that instead of saying Generation X or Generation or Millennial or stuff like that, there should be a numeric component, essentially like if you're a baby boomer, you say, and I say make it specific to each decade. So if somebody's born in the 50s, they're a 9-5.
Hey, that's a great point, Brad. Let's pick that up in B block. So that the bear story is number 2. Those documents may or may not come forward. If you work for a corporation, stop sending emails, stop sending text messages, stop leaving voicemails. Pick up the phone and have a conversation. It's not discoverable.
Or you could just
not
sell
legal advice.
Or you could just sell the Roundup and you don't have to worry about it anymore, right? Just get rid of it.
Right? Yeah, that's right. That's what's going to be happening soon. Go ahead, Brad.
Okay, number 1.
The number 1.
Across the state in Kansas City, a gentleman named Eric Adler from the Kansas City Star has a piece about vehicles. Vehicles are one of your favorite topics, Brad. You say, John, who cares about a vehicle story? That doesn't have to do with Missouri politics. Au contraire. You know where I'm going with this because Brad Hildebrand has talked about the Sheryl Crows of the world and all the pushback against Elon Musk. Well, this gentleman in Kansas City went out and talked to a few Cybertruck owners. And as it turns out, they're feeling a little bit of heat when they're driving down the road in their Cybertruck. The gist of the story is when the Cybertruck first came out, people would stare and ooh and ah and gawk and take pictures and give a big thumbs up. And in recent weeks, if you're driving around Kansas City in a Cybertruck, like one real estate agent is in the Kansas City area, people are more likely to flip them the bird than give them a thumbs up. And a cool aspect of this story that has to do with harassment and pressure is that apparently there's a group that's going around Kansas City with flyers, and they put them on top of a Tesla. They put them on the windshield. And they have, I guess, a swastika, and it says something to the effect of, or it says verbatim, "We know you didn't sign up for this." The letter goes on to say that they know that the person that purchased this particular Tesla, when they bought the Tesla, they thought they were doing good, and they had no idea that Elon Musk was a, quote, Nazi sympathizer, unquote. And the letter goes on to suggest that the owner of this Tesla rethink their choices and sell the Tesla before the, quote, market drops faster than Twitter. So a little bit of good old-fashioned intimidation, don't you think, Brad?
John, can I give you my angle on that?
Yeah, please do.
Let me try this again. I would be willing to bet those people that are out there sticking those stickers or letters, whatever they are, with the swastika on Tesla vehicles. I would be willing to bet that they drove there in Hondas or Toyotas, okay?
Exactly, yeah.
And I would say, if I were one of the Tesla owners, I would get a bunch of Tesla owners together, and I would find out who these people are who are doing that, and I would put together a great big, as we call it in the Francis Howell School District, a gigantic 4x8 sign, and I would plant it in their front yard saying, "The owner of the occupant of this house drives a Japanese car. Remember December 7th, 1941, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor." Get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, listen, those are signs that live in infamy, Brad.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to be a cripple with polio to know that. Yeah, I think it's, of course, imagine taking time out of your day to put a Nazi swastika flyer on somebody's windshield because you dislike Elon Musk.
This is just getting out of control. And the crazy part about this is Elon Musk used to be the darling of the left wing because of the fact he's making these electric cars and he's wonderful. And now he's like the enemy of the left wing. It's like, okay, what happened? Okay, pick that up. I want a little bit more on the Cybertruck thing when we go in the segment B. And I want to just tease this by I have, and maybe you know this as well too. You might have been listening yesterday. Did you by any chance catch the interview with Elliot Davis yesterday on Mark Reardon's show?
No, but he was on Reardon's show, right? I saw the transcript, but I didn't read it. And he's What was he talking about? He was talking about, were there murders recently?
No, interesting. We'll talk about him in general because there was a question of you and I had if he was still at Channel 2, and I have the definitive answer. And matter of fact, I did a terrible thing, John. I did a horrible thing. I don't have any contact information for him, so on his Facebook page, which is where he does most of his business, and I know you don't. What are people that are Facebookers? What are they, John? Again, now according to you,
they're boomers. Yeah, they're definitely boomers.
And but you enhance that a little bit. What do they normally do on Facebook? What do people do on Facebook?
Remind me, Brad.
Oh, you normally say they get into arguments and they debate topics.
Oh yeah, they have boomer arguments.
Right, right, okay. Pretty interesting. And I guess, anyway, I put a little tag on his page essentially saying, look, heard you on Mark Reardon, excellent interview. Love to have you on our show. Gabe put my phone number on there, which, once again, 314-280-8880, and we'll see if he calls me. He probably won't, but that's another story. Okay, we have to take a break, and we'll be back to pick that up. And also, I'm going to give code word here, John. In the next, also on B Block, I want to talk about Ziggy Stardust, okay? And John's probably going,
okay.
John's probably going, who the hell is that?